If you feel stuck with your creativity and you feel guilty over wasting time, I've been right there with you so many times. And I'm here to tell you today that you don't have to feel that way. And the solution, at least for me, was not to stop wasting time or to become more consistent. Some years ago, I spent 7 months feeling utterly miserable because I was supposed to be writing this musical and I wasn't doing it. And what I wish I could tell my past self isn't to start writing earlier, is to just stop beating myself up over those months that I spent wasting time. Unfortunately, I can't do that for my past self. So instead, hopefully, I can do that for you. Hi, I'm Amy, and I'm someone who thinks of themselves as a creative, and you probably are too. Standard disclaimer, I am going to be talking about my own experiences, and I don't know your exact circumstances, so there may be bigger environmental, physical, mental reasons why you're feeling stuck and stagnant. And if that's the case, then please take care of yourself first. This is more about that kind of internalized guilt and shame over the creative process, feeling that your process isn't valid because it doesn't look like the two main versions you see out there, either that very productive, consistent, habit-based version of creativity where you wake up early every morning and you write for 1 hour, come rain or shine, or the opposite, the very chaotic, unstoppable, eccentric artist who just cannot stop making art. So I'm showing an alternative because it would have been really helpful for me to know that that exists. But if you have survival stuff going on, then that comes first, obviously. Because yes, we all work differently and we have to find what works best for us. But there is one non-negotiable for making art, and that is that you have to be alive to make art. So take care of yourself first. Now, a few years ago, I was doing a not at all creative job in a creative field, which I believe is quite common amongst creatives, finding themselves facilitating other people's art, what Julia Cameron calls the shadow artist. And on a bit of a whim, I applied for a call out for a new piece of musical theatre writing to be workshopped with musical theatre students at a university. And I re-recorded a song that I had written in 1 hour. They only asked me for one sample, so that was that. And I put together all the materials that they requested, I think on the day of the deadline, very typical. And then I sent it off. And then a few weeks later, I got offered the job to workshop my new musical with their students the following year. This was very exciting, but keep in mind that I had never written a musical before. I'd been an assistant director, I'd performed, and I'd done loads of admin for theatre shows. And I was very honest about this in my application, by the way. I didn't lie at all. But apparently they were willing to take a leap of faith, and I was shortlisted. And then the final selection was made by the students themselves, who chose, I'm assuming, based on the demo of the song and the synopsis. So now that I had the job, what followed, and this is the stage you may be at right now, what followed were the most miserable 7 months of my life. And I mean creatively, I was lucky enough that, the rest of my life was mostly fine. But I'll be honest, I was on the verge of tears, like half of the time over those 7 months. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd feel my heart beating in my throat. Like, first emotion of the day, anxiety. Because I knew that I should be writing a musical, and it was this huge, shapeless project out there in the horizon, and I had not done it yet. And obviously in that situation, I had that looming deadline, and I had other people who were expecting me to do something. So that contributed to the stress and anxiety. But I've had the same feeling so many other times, and I can't be the only one, right, who has felt this way. Like, I'm supposed to be a creative. I say that I'm a creative, so why am I not creating? And that comes with a lot of guilt and stress and shame. So as you can imagine, after a few months of this, and again, this may be familiar, I thought the best and only course of action was to give up. I should write a very polite email to the university, thanking them very, very much indeed for the opportunity and the faith that they'd placed in me, but I'm afraid that faith was misplaced. Something's come up, and I'm just not going to be able to do it anymore. I feel the need to clarify at this point that this is not a case in which I am such a perfectionist and have such high standards for myself, and so I am saying that I didn't have anything done, but actually what I mean is that the quality of the work wasn't to my standards and my expectation. No. This is objective reality. There were no words on the page at this stage. And at this point, we had perhaps 2 months left, and I was going back and forth about whether I should contact the university. And because I was putting that off as well, the time went on, and I felt worse and worse, and it's keeping me up at night, and I'm waking up in an anxiety spiral in the morning, and I realized one day that I'd left it too late to drop out. I'd put off writing that polite email to the university for so long that now the holidays were upon us, and it would be so hard for the university to find a replacement. So I had no alternative but to figure this out, or other people will be pulled into the mess with me. So we had 2 weeks to go before the deadline for sending off the materials to be distributed amongst the students. And I sat down and I started writing a musical from scratch. And the thing about writing a musical from scratch in 2 weeks is that it's not possible to do. So the fact that I am holding up all of this sheet music and a script right now means that it wasn't from scratch, right? That's the only logical conclusion. Now, there is advice out there that encourages you to waste time as part of a creative process. Obviously, I'm not the first ever person to come up with this, but it's often framed as permission to relax if you're a workaholic who never takes a break. You know, the boredom will actually make you more productive and make you have more creative ideas. It's this kind of strategic time wasting. But this is not what we're dealing with here. This was very much non-strategic, uncontrolled procrastination. And yet, when I sat down to write a whole musical in 2 weeks, it started to happen. And no, it wasn't always a super pretty process. But by the deadline, I was slightly losing my marbles, but also I had 17 songs with sheet music and lyrics and a script and recordings of each song sung in a fugue state by me.
All that's left to do is finding aim.
So what had happened? And you may have had this experience as well. This is often how art feels, right? You sit down and it just pours out of you in this kind of magical, mystical way. And if you haven't had it happen before, it will happen to you at some point. And there's no way to explain it, except that, of course, those 7 months were not wasted. Do you think if I'd sat down 7 months prior for 2 weeks, I would have been able to write a fully formed musical? Of course not. Of course not, right? If you're feeling stuck and like you're wasting time, you may be in that stage where you're absorbing and processing things. For 7 months, I was listening to music differently. I was collecting ideas even though I didn't even know I was doing it. I was watching things and I was absorbing what I thought was a good character arc, and I was reading stuff and I was thinking about plot twists and how they're set up and why do I like them sometimes and why do I not like them some other times. And even the news, I was scrolling on my phone and I was looking at the news, and that informed the themes and the overall message and moral of the story. And as creatives, and I think we're all creatives, right? All of us as human beings, we are creatives. We're constantly doing that. There is no such thing as wasted time. Every experience you have is added to the stew. And I spoke to this artist mentor of mine, and unfortunately this was after I spent 7 months crying. But She blew my mind with this image that the creative process, at least for someone who works like me, is a stew. And we're adding to the stew all the time. And it's simmering away. And there's no way to speed it up to get all the flavor out. And you may work completely differently from me, but even if that's the case, you may find yourself sometimes in that simmering, brewing, stewing stage of creativity. And what I really wish someone had told me is that that's fine, that's allowed. And just that shift in my perception of the process, it didn't actually change anything about the process. Every single project I've embarked on since then has had a very similar incubation period, followed by an intense period of activity. And it very much looks like nothing is happening from the outside and from the inside. It feels like I'm not doing anything for a very long time. But despite my process not really changing, my experience of the process is completely different. Am I perfect now? Believe it or not, no, I have not reached ultimate zen, and I still get frustrated. And one thing is that I still rely a lot on external deadlines for me to actually complete projects. But thanks to this shift in the perception of the process, I'm like chill 99% of the time, And right now, I'm okay with that. I'll take it. Right now, I am someone who stews her ideas. And if I'm at a stage where it looks like nothing is happening, I'm actually stewing, and I know that now. And, I'll take that short final period of frantic activity if the days and weeks and months leading up to it are guilt-free and shame-free. It's a win for me. If you're at that stage right now where you're feeling really stuck, please try to reframe it and think of it as a very valuable stage of the creative process, even though it is frustrating and uncomfortable, and it is quite scary because you don't know if something is going to happen at the end of it. But if it is that fear that's holding you back and keeping you from embracing the process and letting go of the guilt, and it's making you beat yourself up because you shouldn't be stuck for so long, if it is the fear, then this is how I tricked myself, okay? Even if, worst case scenario, you go through the stewing process and there is no great artistic outcome at the end, so what? Wouldn't you still rather have spent the weeks and months leading up to it in a more serene state of mind? Wouldn't you have preferred to spend that time observing your creative process and embracing it and allowing it to happen naturally rather than beating yourself up for not being more productive and more efficient? There is really no losing with this. Because to be honest, I don't think that holding on so tightly is making it any more likely for you to have a positive outcome at the end. If anything, I think it may be stifling your creativity. So I hope you can let go of that guilt and shame and a sense of inadequacy if you're feeling like you're not progressing as fast as you should, because I genuinely think that you have nothing to lose and so much to gain in your sanity and even in your creativity by letting go of that guilt. If you want to see me very practically wrestle with the frustration of things moving very slowly, here's a video of me spending a frankly bananas amount of time crocheting from an authentic Victorian era pattern and being very glad by the end that the process was so slow and inefficient. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me again next week. And until then, live slowly.
It's all at the side, rejoice. Your sweet bones, sturdy bones.